let's move on to some of the stuff that like we've been surprised by in the first 2 weeks. Is there anything that like right off the bat has caught your eye?
I mean, a lot of things have caught my eye. A lot of things that I want to talk about today. I think the main storyline has been the Qalandars, right? Back to back champions last 2 years, and they seem to have reverted to type. So were the last 2 years the anomaly, and this is the Qalandars back to their best. I think the main storyline is the reason they've been so bad, like bottom of the table, no wins, 7 games that they've played. I think the seventh one they got a point because of rain courtesy. So Mubarak उनको के एक point तो मिल गया. But I guess the main thing is कि what's the reason for their performances, right? Like, is it like obviously they've had a lot of injuries, but then aside from that, like, are they not managing their resources best? There's been a lot of criticism of Shaheen's captaincy as well.
Yeah, and I think probably the hallmark of this season is like the fact that there have been like a lot of the games they've lost have been thrillers, where they're defending a score, and the type of thrillers where they just didn't lose in the last few years, right? Like you'd see, like against Multan and Karachi, especially, defending pretty good totals each time. Those are games like in the past you'd see like Zaman, Shaheen, and Haris just like literally shut the door on the opposition towards the end of the game, right? But then you have like your freaking Chachu coming in hitting 24 off and over or something like that, and things just haven't gone their way at all. Like for Shaheen himself, I think it's been a little bit of a learning curve, missing people like Rashid and David Wisa, and it's been tough on him so far. Haris getting injured, everything that's gone wrong for them has gone wrong. And then you add the fact that like Abdullah has been taken out of the 11, which kind of sucks from like a neutral point of view because that's someone you want to see. And then some strange decisions as well, like Sikandar Raza not being used at all. Carlos Brathwaite, matlab, we remember his name, but Shaheen didn't seem to in any of those games either, right? So it's just been strange. It's been a really, really strange 7 games so far from them. And effectively, they are out of the tournament already, which is not something I would have expected. I would have expected them to make the playoffs still.
100%. And looking at their squad, initially, like there was a lot of like there were some issues clearly. Like you could see, like obviously they lost Rashid Khan. That's a huge miss. But they still had the rest of their bowling attack intact. And I think with the mentality and the passion they've played with the last couple of years, I was expecting that to still come across. And it hasn't really so far in these games. I think one of the things we spoke about was picking too many top order players, or like that's basically been seen, right? Like they have Fakhr who hasn't fired at all. Saibzada Fran has actually done a pretty good job, so credit to them for identifying that and giving him the full backing. Someone who's performed domestic level, or फिर उसको actually like opener का slot दिया and they've backed him to perform and he's done that. So credit to them for that. But that's almost at the expense of a player you've developed over the past few years in Abdullah Shafiq, who is one of the promising batsmen, not just in Pakistan but on the international circuit, in all three formats. To be very honest with the ability that he has, yes, T20s में उसने internationally कुछ नहीं किया अभी तक, but we've seen in the PSL that he has that ability, he has that short range. और ऐसे player को I think drop करना, I think
Yeah,
it's a
no, no.
pretty nonsensical decision
Yeah.
to be very honest. And then Akib Javed said in a press conference when asked that question, ke, we had too many top order players, so someone had to be dropped. Well, that's on you, right? Like at the draft, you should have figured that out. Ke, like ये team हम pick कर रहे हैं, तो like कौन से players pick करने हैं? Like middle order में भी किसी को तो रखना है ना. तो फिर वो those are the sort of issues. And then to compound that, like I don't know who's making the decisions about who to send, but I think their season was summed up in one decision and one moment, which was that match against Peshawar Zalmi where they were chasing 212. They had a pretty good platform. Rasi van der Dusen, who's actually been phenomenal for them. He's been the one guy who's put his hand up in almost every game and really been like he's really living up to that platinum category that he was signed in, right? Which not a lot of players across like the other teams as well that aren't doing well have done that, and we'll come to like the other teams in due time. Like, and he's been doing that and he's been delivering. And in that match, he single-handedly was keeping them in it. They were 109 for 3 and around the 13th over, chasing 212. So that's around 13 plus required run rate thi us time pe. They had Jan Dad Khan, who already in the early matches had shown his clean striking ability. Um, there was Sikandar Raza, who internationally and in the domestic circuit in terms of the T20 leagues is one of the best players going around. IL T20 ka man of the tournament tha. And then you have, as you said, Carlos Brathwaite, who has won a T20 World Cup single-handedly in the last over of a game. And you need 13 plus and over, and you have those guys in the dressing room, and you send Ehsan Hafiz Bhatti. Like, I mean, with all due respect to, fair respect to him, like, I'm sure he has a good career and he is a promising player. But like, what was that decision? I think that was criminal. I think uski wajah se
Yeah.
wo match unke haathon se nikal gaya. And then, that was still a point in the tournament where if they got over the line in that game, with Rasi scoring that 100, they just needed a little bit of support from the other end. That changes your entire dynamic in the tournament, right? You get a little bit of confidence, you get some momentum, and then you can build from that. But they just blew it completely. Like, when you get those sort of openings, when things haven't been going your way, you have to grab them with both hands. And I don't know, they just fell asleep almost in that game, I felt.
And Asad actually, he played okay. Like, he didn't play badly. It's just the fact that when he came in, you could have had 8-9 overs of SRB coming in there, or a quick Carlos Brathwaite innings, and especially with a guy like SRB, like the kind of form he's in right now, I think all over the world, right? Like ILT20, he was one of the players
Exactly.
of the tournament, if not the player of the tournament, if I'm not mistaken, and just the kind of form he's been in. So plus the experience. So I don't know why they didn't throw him out there. It didn't really make too much
They
sense.
haven't really used him properly at all, to be fair. Like, batting
With the
mein, he's been
ball, or
underutilized. Bowling mein to
the game before, they
exactly.
probably should have used him in the last over as well. Not, I mean, like, look, like 11 or what was it, 15 of the last over? Or was
Not
it
sure,
11? I
but it was
can't quite
something like that.
remember.
Aisa
But
kuch tha.
something, it's never, it doesn't matter even if your best death bowler in the world is bowling. It's not an easy task, don't get me wrong, but um, I would still rather have Sikandar
Yeah,
Raza
bro,
bowl than
because
a
the
rookie
way
in
he
that.
bowls, also Sikandar Raza, it sort of is more like he bowls stump to stump. He bowls with that slingy arm action for a first spinner. Like, there's more
Hides the ball
chances.
behind his
Exactly,
back.
there's more chances
Yeah,
of
he is.
pulling off a win in that situation. So they missed that trick in those couple of games. Like, fine, it's all well and good backing a player, but um, at the end of the day, when your team isn't performing and you have the resources and you're not using them, then you can't hide behind the fact that you had all these injuries and players missing out. Because, like, with
No,
Rashid,
no,
they
because they
probably knew
had.
that to begin with, right? That he wasn't going to be there because of his
Yeah.
injury and surgery. Visa and Harris, yes, they've been big blows to them. And, like, obviously, we all wish Haris Rauf a speedy recovery. This is the last thing he needed at this moment in time with the way he's been treated by the PCB. And from our perspective, I think we're completely behind Haris Rauf in terms of this beef that they're sort of built up with him. I think it's pretty ludicrous that the PCB ripped away a player's contract.
Dude,
For a player who's like a white ball specialist who's been performing for Pakistan, yes, he didn't, want to play that test series against Australia. That's well within his rights. Like, he hasn't played like a
did the guy who took his contract away, did he want to play Test cricket? The
exactly.
last time we asked him,
So
he didn't either, right? So
yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
definitely been like
Well,
something that they've been
yeah,
hit with, and obviously like it's dented Haris Rowe's confidence himself. Like, in
and it sucks because that was the game he was beginning to find his form, and then
yeah,
just a quick word on him, man. Like what a competitor. Like you see it a lot with him. I think in that game Simon Dewell was saying something about like him not being renowned as a fielder, and I was like, bro, like how do you get paid to commentate? Like I feel like anybody like who watches cricket enough should know that, like, for me at least, he's probably like one of the best fast bowling fielders I've ever seen. Like him, Trent Bolt, Jimmy Anderson, these are the type of guys who come to your mind. But like in the world right now, I'd say he's up there, and he's one of the best fielders in Pakistan's team right now too. So and then just the level of commitment he plays with, excellent catch, and it was sad to see him go down like that. But yeah, sometimes maybe uh, for him, hopefully, inshallah, the injury is like a blessing in disguise, because he kind of looked mentally drained too from everything that was going on. So maybe like a little bit of time away out of the camera, off the pitch, these types of things can maybe help rejuvenate him a little bit. And then I think we spent quite a bit of time on Lahore
I mean, I
already.
have I have a lot of more things to say about Lahore,
On
to be very
Lahore,
honest. Yeah, like we haven't
yeah,
even
okay, go ahead, go
we
ahead.
haven't even come to Shaheen, like the captain. There's been a lot of criticism
Yeah.
of him. Obviously, like, a captain is only as good as like the players he has, and in the last few years he's had a lot much better bowling attack than he had this year because of those injuries that we spoke about. But still, yeah, even despite that, you still have to rise to the occasion. You've seen like Shan Masood and others will talk about sort of using a limited bowling attack and getting the most out of them. Like, I think his use of himself and Zaman is a good summary of the issues that Lahore have faced this season. Like, Zaman Khan is a death over specialist. Like, uske charo over, middle overs tak khatam karwaye ja rahe, and then Shaheen is bowling at the death when his death record isn't the best. And I feel like if you were gonna do that, you can do the opposite. So I know you don't have the best bowlers in the middle, so you need a wicket, which is why you bring Zaman Khan and you're backing him as one of your better bowlers. But you could do the opposite. Why doesn't Shaheen bring himself on in the middle and get that wicket, since he's more likely to do so anyways, to get that breakthrough, and then continue to back Zaman with what he's shown that he can deliver at, right, and bowl him in the death overs. That's one area where I feel like he could have been a little bit, they could have improved in.
Yeah.
And then also, like, Jahandad Khan is another player who he has the talent. He's shown with both bat and ball that he has like some ability, but he doesn't really have a role. Like, every match he's used differently. Kabhi wo power play mein bowling kar raha hota hai, kabhi beach mein, kabhi death mein, even batting up and down the order. So I feel like he's a player who they probably haven't used as well as they could have. Yeah, and to top that
That's
off
a
with
really
like the
that's
way
a
they
good point.
use their spinners, right? Yeah, yes, unki spin attack itni achhi nahi thi with like Salman Fayaz and S. Bhatti, but I don't know. I guess that's where like he's struggling, right? Because the spinners itne achhe nahi hai, so he's
I think
having
he
to
got a
move
bit
around the
confused.
fast
Yeah.
bowlers. Yeah.
I really like the point you made with Jahandad, and with him, like I saw in the first few games, he really left himself late with the ball, and I think he was trying to improve with that. Like, um, the first two games they lost, and then that Multan game he did give himself the third over there, right? And then in the Karachi game as well, he did bring himself back. He got Pollard out. In the first two games, especially, I think he left himself too late. But I somewhere you feel that Multan game was really the turning point for them, where if they kind of took them down towards the end, because they were in a position where they should have won and they would have won a game like that in the past. So I
Yeah.
really think that losing that game put a really big dent in them, followed by the Karachi game. And yeah, Shaheen, we were here a few months ago talking about who some of the people we had in mind to replace Babur were. And for me, I'll put my hand up. He was not my first choice, but he was a choice, right? And he's a young guy. He's learning. I think there are good things about his captaincy, but clearly he's not completely there yet. And he's learning. That's part of the job. But I get a bad feeling that in the next month or two, you're going to see him replaced as Pakistan captain. For me, it's a 50-50. I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if he was not Pakistan's captain on their next T20 tour, which would be really, it would be terrible for him, right?
Yeah.
Like, you hate seeing players treated like this. Um, I've been saying for a couple of years that Rizwan's probably the best captaincy choice in the country. But this is something where the PCB should have thought, like, Rizwan not being made captain
But you say
had to do with
तुम तो
politics in itself.
पीसीबी कहते हो, लेकिन पीसीबी कौन चला रहा है?
हाँ,
Like, हर 2 दिन बाद तो बदलता
वो
है ना.
हमें किसको
तो
पता है?
फिर
वही
वही ना,
वही तो बात है ना।
वही तो मसला
तो
है.
जिसने शाहीन को बनाया, they clearly had a problem with Rizwan for a non-cricketing issue, तो उसको नहीं बनाया। वो उसके influence, या they thought there was some type of conflict of interest with him, and we won't go into it, but their whole agency and everything, तो शाहीन को बनाया. But now if they remove Shaheen, I mean, like,
यार
again,
पॉइजन चैलेस ही बन रहा है पाकिस्तान की कप्तानी. देखो, लाइक,
yeah,
रिजवान कितनी फ्रीडम के साथ मुल्तान की कैप्टनसी कर रहा है. बाबर सीम्स लाइक rejuvenated now that he's come out of that. And then here
not
you have
Pakistan's captain
and then you
anymore.
have
Yeah,
Shaheen, who's like getting the brunt of the criticism from pundits and
yeah.
everyone, ex cricketers alike now. Kaptani made isn't going well. After like a brilliant couple of years where everything like he touched seemed to turn to gold. So ye to hote hain. And as far as his captaincy goes, it's probably good for him to get that learning curve. I don't know whether it's good for Pakistan in this year, given the fact that the T20 World Cup is right around the corner. Or as जैसे तुम बातें करते हो, obviously
That's
it's
the
not good
problem,
to
though.
change a captain like immediately. None of us would want like that to be done to Shaheen, regardless of who we believe like should have been captain or shouldn't have. Yeah, ऐसे players के careers खराब होते हैं. This is what we saw like a previous generation where the captaincy was passed around to everyone, and that's how things sort of fell apart for that generation. We don't want that to happen to these guys. Like, in जो मतलब decision makers हैं उनका
That's
कुछ
what it
नहीं
looks
पता
like.
होता.
And And I think Shaheen has been hurt by the fact that he's been missing his deputy in David Wisa, who I think was like a massive help to him in the last few years, and just like a really galvanizing force within that dressing room. And now, like again, it goes back to, I will still say Rizwan should have been made captain. It's as light as day to me. Like there's no way he shouldn't have been made captain. And year after year, we see in the PSL that it's not really close. When we talk about the captaincy contenders, he is by far and away the best captain in the country. And the fact that he didn't get it, he was robbed, right? Shaheen, I think he could be a really good captain. Don't get me wrong. I still think he moves the game forward. 23, 24. Like we were saying, Babur was learning in his, even towards the end of his captaincy, 4 or 5 years in. So Shaheen should be afforded that chance. The issue now with how limited overs cricket works is that there is a tournament every year. So that patience and the ability to learn is not something you're going to be given as a captain in a country like Pakistan, which sucks for him. Um, and me again getting the feeling that he's going to get removed, despite what my personal feelings are towards who should be captain. It would suck to see them, play with the confidence of somebody who we have so much invested in. We've already invested half a decade in him, and inshallah, you hope there's at least another decade there for us to invest in him, and to kind of fuck with his confidence this early and at this stage is something that you'd hope that we could have avoided, or learned from by this stage. But again, this is what I'm saying is not based off any rumor, and it's just my personal feeling that this will happen or it might happen at some point. Uh, it's not something that I see as like a very far gone conclusion.
चलो देखते हैं लेकिन जो भी हो आगे कलंदर्स तो प्लेऑफ्स में नहीं जा रहे एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वो तो घर ही जा रहे हैं बेचारे so we can move on from them. There's
Savage.
a lot